Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Kickass Couples Podcast. We are excited. We're doing an East Coast, West Coast exchange today. We have the pleasure of having Audrey, Bilger, and Cheryl Pawelski with us today, and they are bringing in the West Coast to us. So we want to welcome you all to the Kickass Couples Podcast.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. It's our pleasure to be here.
Good morning.
Early in music business hours.
Is it early? Were you on the red carpet last night, Cheryl? No? Okay. No. Good. Well, we're excited. And hey, I want to thank you guys. I am holding, I'm going to have to get close to the camera here because we've got this funky green screen going on. So maybe I won't hold those up, but
like
I have got a
floating in space.
Mr. Rogers has never had it so good. I've got two great vinyls in my hand, and I don't know how you knew that I have a record player and I love vinyl, but you sent us Hank Williams, the Garden Spot programs, and it's such a good feeling from Mr. Rogers. So I got to ask you, tell me a little bit about your business and where those came from. We can't wait to sample them and enjoy some of the music. Sure.
Well, I sent you the two albums that we won Grammys for with my label Omnivore Recordings. So Mr. Rogers was the latest. We actually won the Grammy in this living room because it was COVID days. So no big parties for that one. But the Hank was a little bit earlier. So I just wanted to have kind of a sample of what we do at Omnivore. It's historical, also known in the business as a catalog label. So Sure. We're not out signing brand new artists and trying to break them. We're diving back into the vaults and looking for stuff that, is either previously unreleased or things that we feel are important, like Mr. Rogers.
Well, I just want to note too that it was super fun and weird to have the Grammys come to the living room, and having gone with Cheryl each time she's been nominated 5 times and gotten to walk the red carpet. I will say that the weirdest thing was that she was announced as a winner. There are a lot of things you can even watch this online. But then when it was over, after her 30-second acceptance speech, we were just in the living room. Mm-hmm. So we look around, we call our folks. We're like, hey.
No parties.
But it was a peculiar way for Cheryl to win a Grammy.
Yeah.
That's great. Undoubtedly there'll be more, and you'll have an opportunity to have that party. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, you gotta enjoy that. Well, we appreciate the music and we love music. We're big fans of the arts. And we look forward to enjoying that. And I'm going to we're going to kind of kick this off with you guys. I would love to know, and Audrey, I'm going to ask you to go first if you're ready. I'd like to know, what do you think makes you and Cheryl a kick-ass couple?
Well, I would say that one of the words that we use for our relationship is that we're greedy. We like to spend time together. We love each other. We have fun together. And I think that that's certainly one of the things that makes us a great couple. That, and we each have a spirit of adventure. So we're more inclined to say yes than no. We like getting out and exploring new things, and those are really important. I often say that for me, and we've been together, we're going into 26 years together. So we are.
Congratulations.
We see our relationship as a kind of project that it's the project that we're most proud of. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes us a kick-ass couple.
Wow. Great answer. Cheryl, what would you have to add to that?
How can you add to that? I mean, this is what happens when you're married to a professor, now turned college president. You know, she kind of, I'm just the arm candy in this one.
Are you the trophy wife? I love that. Are you the trophy wife?
That is hilarious because from the largest part of our relationship, I would say I was the plus one. Right. And it's only since I came to take this presidency that Cheryl is now in the role of accompanying me and having a little bit more of that plus one feel. Yeah, the folks at the school when we first got there like to joke that I was the first lady, knowing that probably wouldn't be my favorite thing. It's not the title. It's not the title. No,
not the title. Well, a couple of things. I love how you guys share that because relationships and marriage are definitely projects and they're ongoing. It's not we get there, we're done, we move on. And it's also relationships, especially you guys are at 27. We're coming up on 28 this year. So we can relate to that. And, and there's seasons in those relationships. And you guys spoke to that. And it's so important because we each have different roles depending on the season that we're in. Sometimes we're out front and sometimes we're behind supporting and doing what we need to do. So I can relate to your responses and appreciate that a lot.
I also appreciate that you brought out the fact that you have fun together. And I think couples get in a rut and they forget to have fun together. They forget to set aside a time to play and just enjoy each other. And so I think it's important for our listeners to hear.
Well, we have to work hard to get to those places. I mean, we value that so much because our lives are so busy. So, we make that a priority. And also, the thing about making it a project. I mean, I always like to say, it's the best work there is, and it's hard work, but it really is just absolutely the best work. And it is this ongoing project. You just don't know where you're going to go. And that's a great thing because that leads to the adventure.
Well, and I'd say too, that we both have really tough jobs and those jobs can kind of eat you up at certain points. And I think we both have really good kind of mindfulness about when we are starting to, the jobs are starting to kind of take us apart in ways. And we'll say, okay, we need to walk, we need to get dinner, sit across the table, we need date night. And just remembering that because, especially, as for me, I live in semesters. So certain rhythms of the semester will get really tough. And for Cheryl too, it's, at any given day, she's got, a dozen projects on the burner.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you guys, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's really important to check in. So one of my favorite things to do is walk my president to work. I carry her books and her computer and we go down the street to school. But it's a really important time to just communicate and, decompress in some ways and just, so much goes on in our days that it's really hard to catch up at the end of the day because we're both comatose.
Yeah.
And we hold hands. And I think sometimes, when I need support, I reach for Cheryl's hand and it's very stabilizing and grounding.
Sure. I love that. And you guys said a word, you said prioritization, and the whole lens we look through and our Kickass Couples Nation, what our goal is to help couples learn how to better prioritize that number one human relationship. And when we're not, that's when the problems occur. So regrounding, reconnecting, and having those touch points, as you said, is critical.
Yeah, sometimes we just give our spouse the leftovers, and that's sad. I think couples fall into that habit of just giving the leftovers, and it really is detrimental to the relationship. So making those times and those efforts to connect is huge. Mm-hmm. I want to go backward a little bit with both of you. And I'm going to start with you, Cheryl. I believe that we have a lot of grandpa in our bones. And so I think that when we come to a relationship, we bring a lot of that history with us. And so I'm curious, what did love look like for you when you were growing up? How was it modeled for you in your home?
Well, my folks are still together, and Audrey's folks are still together. And my folks really inhabit a world and jokes of their own. So, it's always been, I guess we talk a lot about humor and having fun. And certainly in my family, that was a priority. It still is, even though none of the rest of us understand what they're talking about. But some of it's funny.
Well, I'd say we have a high threshold of tolerance for really silly jokes.
Yeah.
And sometimes the sillier, the better. There was a point in our relationship when we realized when we're with Cheryl's folks, they will like start to laugh over something and we're just like eye roll. And then we realized at a certain point in our relationship, oh my God, we're like that.
We do the same thing. Yeah.
We're like that.
We're all becoming our parents. I don't know. But, I think we both have really solid foundations as far as people who are really committed to each other, and, it was a safe and happy and ridiculous space to inhabit. And that was really a good template for us.
How did your parents show love to each other?
I don't know. I guess how anybody does, right? You're that other person's backbone and support. And, I watched my folks go through a lot of challenges, but they did it together. They did it as a team. And, life is hard. The world is messed up. Right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's the greatest act of love for me, is to be there for somebody else and be a part of that team, be a contributing part of the team. And also, they were very square with each other. My mom still has a habit of just letting it rip, whatever's on her mind, and so that's, I think, being completely honest with each other. Mm-hmm. That was really important. I think, if we're talking about priorities, I think honesty and just the ability to have the frankest conversation. I mean, I would imagine that you would say I'm very frank with you.
That is true. That is very true. Yes.
But that came from Kathy.
Yeah. Yep.
And how about for you, Audrey? What did love look like when you were growing up in your household?
Yeah, I'd say, my parents, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And, my family, I'm the granddaughter of coal miners on both sides. And so my family started off, with, in pretty tight circumstances. I have 3 brothers. At a certain point, as my dad was kind of growing his career and lifting us up into the middle class, my mom would make his suits. Who does that? She was wow. Tough and fierce and remains that. And I'd say with Cheryl too, watching them go through some hard things and just be together with that. I think that is, I kind of see us as facing things sometimes. We have to both stare down the stuff that's hard. And that way of being a united front, I think, is something that I took from my family. Mm-hmm. I would say too that in terms of showing love, there were a lot of celebrations and big meals, and I think that my dad comes from Italian Polish stock, and so there's a lot of food that's ways of showing love, but just definitely that sense of togetherness, and we're in this together. That's been important.
Sure. It sounds like you're both very fortunate to grow up in very stable and loving households. And you've been able to, actually bring a lot of that to your own relationship.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah. And grateful for that.
That's wonderful. It's nice when love is modeled in a great way, it gives you a good template that and I know the last 28 years, that dance is ongoing of how to take those 2 experiences and bring them together. And we have 14 pillars. If you all got a sheet, if it's accessible, we're not going to have any quizzes on it, but we'll refer to it later. But the first three of those pillars we call the 3 C's. And we feel pretty strongly that they're foundational for any successful relationship. The first one is commitment. The second is communication. And the third is conflict resolution. So I'd like to start with you, Cheryl. I'm curious, tell me more about what commitment looks like with you and Audrey.
Second nature at this point, I think. I think, it's really something that we were always sort of working towards. And almost since early on. And, we talked about being a team before. And to me, that's really sort of the key. You're for each other all the time. And my commitment to her is just prioritizing Audrey at every opportunity. I want to make her life easier, and
Sure.
So my commitment is really to be support staff, as
Right.
best as, no, it's true. As best as, don't roll those eyes at me.
Oh, no, I'm not. The funny thing is, I think we both think
Sure.
that way of how we can support.
Yeah, but he
support
asked
one
me
another.
first.
I know, but I bring you coffee in bed.
I know. I get coffee.
I get that too. Not
Oh,
in
you're
bed,
the coffee.
but I
yeah.
get the coffee.
I'm the
every
coffee
morning.
delivery in this relationship.
See, and I think it kind of makes sense that that's not. I mean, there may be couples who trade that off, but it is something that I love. So that in terms of, I think each of us have ways of putting one another first.
Right.
And at the same time, something I think about a lot is the way in which there are people who are all about ego, and then there are people who are about commitment to self and others. And you talk about that as being kind of service oriented, right? And that's certainly how for instance, in my work, that's how I think of what it means to be a college president. Is I'm there for the institution, for these students, for that community, and similarly in our relationship, we're here for each other. And at the same time, a thing that I know is that nobody wants more for me than Cheryl does. And even in the sense of we never want the other one to be stuck. We always want, we're ambitious for one another. We cheerlead one another. Mm-hmm. And then another thing that, in reflecting on how to approach talking about this, being meta about our relationship, I think that I realized too is that with your relationship, you strengthen it by coming to understand one another's vulnerabilities and committing to protect those vulnerabilities. Because I think that one of the most dangerous things that people can do in relationships is to take those vulnerabilities and poke at them, right. As a way of getting the upper hand or winning an argument. And we're just I think we're really attuned to that, and we've worked through a lot of stuff that allows
Sure.
us to be stronger together.
Yeah, you said that beautifully. I love that when you speak about vulnerability in that manner, it's really about creating more intimacy between the two of you rather than tearing each other down. You're building each other up and you're becoming closer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She is much more articulate in the morning.
I'm a morning person too. We ride different that way. She drags me into midnight and I drag her into sunrise if I can get her out of bed.
It's true.
Yeah. But I think it's important, I call those landmines, right? It's like, if there's a minefield, why would you go dance in it? Because something's going to explode and go off, especially when you're dealing with the emotions and feelings of the person you're supposed to value more than any other. Right. And I think, if you're immature in your relationship, and you guys are certainly not, nor are we, sometimes that's enticing. Oh yeah, well, I can get you this way. And that's such an immature and hurtful thing to do. So I love that, cherishing and understanding those vulnerabilities makes it safe. And I think that's definitely kick ass and definitely shows your commitment to each other. Mm-hmm. And, Cheryl, I love what you said, that it's about what can you do to best support, which means take self out of it. We talked about that too, Audrey. Take self out. Whatever I got to do to help give you what you need. Not up for me to define what you need. It's up to you or me to intuit and to get guidance and direction of how I can best do it. And that makes the relationship so strong. So I appreciate what you both shared on commitment.
If I could just add one more thing too, because I just
wait, I want to add something. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I know. For us, so when we talk about being together and being in 26 years in, we count from when we met. Right. And we do that because we weren't legally able to get married. When we were legally able to get married and we signed those papers, that wasn't something that changed the relationship we have to one another. It did, though, affirm that relationship in a way that is very powerful. And I think that, even though marriage isn't for everyone, for us, it's something that we're very proud of, and we're proud. We each call each other wife, and that it makes it easier for us to clarify what exactly our relationship is, because if you say partner, people will think we're in business together, and boy, are we in business.
And you are definitely in business together.
In all ways.
Big business.
I just wanted to note that because there are different ways of framing commitment, and in fact, I published this book with a co-author on lesbian marriage that came out in 2010, 12. Well, that's great. It came out right around the time that it came out, right as marriage equality was going through the courts. 2012, that's it. And so it's, there's just stories of women thinking about what it means to be married and whether they want to be married or whether they think that marriage is some kind of an institution that is oppressive for women. And anyway, so it seemed important to pay attention to that, because my belief was that at some point we would either forget that this was ever not possible, or it would become contested again. And so anyway, it's something I think a lot about. Sure. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And what is the title of the book from 2012? The title is Here Come the Brides. Here Come the Brides. Okay. Reflections on lesbian love and marriage. Oh, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. We'll make sure we get that in the show notes so people can check that out.
Yeah, definitely. We have a second pillar, communication. And you kind of touched on that actually a little bit in our conversation earlier about making time to connect with each other. But I'd like to go into it a little bit more and learn from you, how do you communicate with each other? How, you both mentioned that you have really crazy lives and some of it's seasonal, but, when you're in the thick of it, how do you really carve out that time to connect and communicate? And what does that communication look like?
Mm-hmm. Well, we talked about any time that we can get together is really important to us. So making time to walk and it's really good. Your body's doing something else, so your thoughts free up and you get to really spend some deep dive time. But I think the other thing that we talked about before is just being very honest and forthright. And I know that, due to my familial history, I'm pretty good at that, but I think that was probably surprising to you at first and took some adjusting because, I want to always, I'm like the fish swimming upstream. I want to fix everything. I want to get there as soon as possible. I have the hardest time understanding, we were talking about landmines before. Why would you do that to each other? What a waste of time and energy, your collective energy. And we don't, and maybe it's because it's scarce for us, right? That kind of energy and output. But I just, shortest distance is a straight line, right? So let's get to it. And I know that I can't be the fixer all the time. And that's something that we work through that's my orientation. Like, I'm just going to go straight into it and communicate as effectively as I'm writing like marketing copy, right? Like I spend all day condensing words so that when you look at something, you know all of the points I want to make, on a 1-inch sticker on a record.
Sure.
And you can't always be that way in a relationship. So I had to slow down and she had to get used to me communicating in that way and my desire to fix everything, which I cannot. I know this.
Sure. And so Audrey, how did you work through that? How did you all, I mean, when someone's really that direct and, A to B and just getting there as fast as you can, like you said, straight line, if that's not something that you're comfortable with or familiar with, how did you work through that?
Well, I mean, I think that takes time. That's why we say it's a project. And what I feel like is, and everyone knows this, that as in a relationship, you'll come back to certain kinds of triggers for things that you'll fight about, right? And this is we joke that are we having fight number 5? Are we having fight number 6? But I'd say that there's some that are really trivial, like schedule. You didn't tell me you were doing that. Right. That's kind of one thing. And then there are the big things. I think some of the big things are, trying to sort out, trying to solve a big problem. And for some of those, for me, I want to kind of sit with it and let it simmer, and just recognizing that, when Cheryl steps in and wants to help, and thinks that she's got it figured out, that is, it's definitely well intended. But I think in other ways too, one of the things I think about over time is that we will come to certain things again and again and go deeper each time. And sometimes it's exhausting. No, it's always exhausting when you get to those really deep issues. And then we'll come out of it and both just thank each other for having spent the time kind of digging. And we'll have aha moments like, oh, I suddenly realized, oh, that's why this was upsetting to me. And at the roots of a lot of the things I think that become triggers for any kind of conflict and that require communication is just recognizing that because we both want to take care of each other and look out for each other, what we least want is to fall short or to be not the ideal person for one another. Mm-hmm. And so I think that there are certainly moments when that just kind of pulling back from that and recognizing, okay, we're in this together. So we're gonna have to sort this out. We don't get to go hide in the closet.
Right.
When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder what you could be doing better? Have you ever thought how helpful it would be to be a part of a like-minded community of other imperfect couples who want to level up in their number one relationship? Come visit Kickass Couples Nation, where you can talk with people just like you who are looking for ways to invest in and increase their joy, commitment, and fulfillment in their most important human relationship. You'll have access to a team of licensed marriage therapists, coaches, articles, podcasts, live webinars, and more. Just visit MatthewPHoffman.com so you can learn more about a community that's ready to help you level up. That's MatthewPHoffman.com so you can become of the growing Kickass Couples Nation right now.
It's interesting because what I heard you guys talking about is Cheryl seems to be the pursuer. Hey, let's face it, let's deal with it, let's get through it, that shortest line, right? And Audrey, you're a little bit more like, distancer, let me think about it, I'll come back to it, we'll ruminate and we'll reconnect later. And we haven't met a couple yet where they're both distancers or they're both pursuers. I'm more the pursuer, Cheryl, in our relationship, and Kim's like, I need to ruminate, let me formulate, let me marinate, let me think. We'll reconnect later. And I've had to learn that too. I've had to learn to honor that because that's what she needs, right? And I'll always want to get it done right away, cross it off the list, move through it, let's go. And so I had to learn that dance. And it sounds like you guys have done that effectively as well, relative to your communication.
And I believe it's hard for the pursuer because the pursuer wants to fix it and cross it off the list. Let's get it. Let's take care of this. I don't want this hanging out. And I believe that the pursuer really needs to know from their partner that, we're going to get back to this. Give me an hour. Give me, sometimes you have to make a point to give them a time frame of when you're going to come back because they're so worried and concerned and, just want to get through it. So I think it's important that we respect both sides of that. And I think you're right. It's a dance. You have to learn how to give and take with that.
Yeah, I think I'd say one additional thing on this, and this is one of those kind of couple rules that we learned fairly early, is not to say always and never. And so we
always
actually
do this.
So we actually I think routinely correct ourselves on that. I didn't mean to say you always do this. And that too is that way that you kind of go into some situations and you think, oh, this is the end of the world. It's the end of everything. It's not. And the behavior generally isn't the always and the never.
Yeah, you have to meet in the middle. I mean, you had to come towards me and I just had to be patient sometimes, which is hard for me.
Patient.
I'm not, I'm really super patient with some things, but
that's true.
But yeah, it's more than crossing off the list. I was more worried. I mean, when we were first dealing with these things, it was the end of the world if you weren't communicating with me. Right?
Yeah, you're frightened.
Yeah, I need
the safety of your relationship is in jeopardy. That's what you were hearing,
right? And
or feeling.
Like we said, we started numbering arguments and stuff. It's like, do we have to go to number 57 again? It's and that became very helpful. That was helpful to me because we could just identify exactly what we were doing and then just go, we're tossing this. This is not a productive conversation anymore. We've been here before. We don't have to revisit it. But it took a while to get there.
Sure. And there's a statistic out there that says there's going to be, 2/3 of arguments that you're never going to resolve. You're always going to be sort of stuck in that perpetual, unresolvable state with things. And really all it is just gleaning understanding, really understanding where that other person is coming from. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to solve it.
Yeah, that makes me crazy. I need to fix it.
So we're going to move on to our third C. You want to talk about our third C?
Sure. Conflict resolution is our third C. And we know that throughout the journey of life, there are going to be things that arise. We're going to have conflict in one way or another. Sometimes they're just little things and sometimes they're big blow-ups. But I'd love to know from each of you, how do you deal with resolving conflict in your relationship?
Yeah, I think from what we've been saying right now, that we'd say that communication is the key to resolving conflict.
And numbering your fights.
Yeah.
That's a new one.
Yeah, I know. I love. We learned.
We might adopt that.
Oh yeah, it's great.
But also, I'd say that the numbering the fight piece is a recognition that it's this thing that we come back to again and again. And I think once you identify that too, it gives you a way to look under the hood and say, okay, what is that?
Right.
And where are the roots for that? And you were saying earlier, some of this might come from family. Oh yeah, I understand when I was little, this is how that felt. Or some of it will come from, oh yeah, this is what's happening at work right now. And you're not that person who's been an antagonist for me. And I'm not going to make you into that person. And I'd say, those are some of the things that I think can help, is just identifying that conflict that there are patterns to conflict, and also, trying to be kind to oneself in the middle of these things, and recognize that if you're striving for perfection, and we're both a little on that type A kind of spectrum. Maybe a lot of kick-ass couples are. I saw that as a pattern, but you're striving for perfection. And I would define myself as a pragmatic idealist. And I think in relationships too, you have the highest ideals for your relationship, but you know what? You can have a bad day.
Yeah.
No doubt. We all have them.
And what number, I want to know, what's burning is, since you guys said it, what number fight or argument or disagreement are you on? Do you know? Is there a number?
No, we randomly assigned.
Okay.
You just give them random.
I thought, holy cow, they got a list?
No.
Man.
We've been keeping track all
Don't
these
make
years.
me go to 98.
They're only
Don't
at 57.
make me go there.
I will say, there is a whole bucket around time because our schedules are so conflicted. So it'll just be like, oh yeah. Okay, how long are you going to be gone? Oh, I didn't know you were going to be gone that long. And
we should start naming them in other ways.
That's true. Because
we don't even fight that much.
The numbers are abstract.
Yeah. I mean, we finally started anthropomorphizing our cars so that they have names. So we should just give our fights. Hey, enough with Tony already. You know?
Yeah, Tony, get out of here. So kind of as a follow-up on that, can you guys think of what's been one of the biggest conflicts or challenges that you faced? And can you share with us and our listeners how you worked through it? So can either one of you think of an example? Man, this was a tough one, but here's what we did.
Well, I do think, I mean, one of the big things for us, as I said, our lives were going along in one way for a pretty long time. I was a professor, and this is, I would go and teach my classes. And as I said, I was largely the plus one in Cheryl's life for that time. And that I'm a music lover. I'm happiest at a concert. And so, there were just ways in which we had rhythms set for that. And then when I decided that I wanted to go into work that was going to take a different sort of toll on my schedule, we really had to, we talked through that. I would say, Cheryl really, cheerleaded for me to take this path. And at the same time, when it changes that rhythm, we had to figure that out. And it was personally hard for me at first because the roles that I've taken on have been so all encompassing that it felt like I died to my past self. And we just had to come together. And I'd say that this is where, Cheryl was very helpful to me in helping me understand that, if I have to be, connected to something away from the relationship for 15 hours, 20 hours, or I get immersed in really huge problems that we can handle that in this relationship.
Well, and we also, the latest move required us to move cities even.
Yeah.
So, and that was all tough, but it was a conflict, but it was also not. I mean, it was a joint decision. So,
sure.
I was thinking more of the early days when I was always gone. Now we're both gone, but I was gone a lot because I was really, I was just a little bit of a sprout at, in the major record label system. And then I had a band. So at night I was gone too. And that was hard. And it just, the resolution to that was just an awareness that we had to prioritize. I mean, that's when we learn how to prioritize each other.
Sure.
And what was really important. I mean, when there's 24 hours in a day. I mean, sometimes we push it to 25, but there's really only so much time, and that's always been a source of conflict. And I think, it's probably not as much anymore.
Well, and I would say that one of the biggest pieces of it again is that we're greedy for each other's company, and it's hard not to be able to be everywhere at once. So Cheryl just won a distinguished alumna award from Marquette, her college, and I had to be at my first board of trustees retreat. Well, I would love to have had her there, and she would love to. And we just had to make peace with the fact that these awesome things are happening in our lives, and we can't always be right there. And then to try to be there as much as we can is another priority.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, I love that you're acknowledging the good and appreciating what is happening to each other. And I love the part about, being greedy for each other's time. I'm greedy for Matthew's time, but, he doesn't always have that time to give. So figuring that out and taking advantage of the opportunities when you have them, learning again that dance, it's important. Mm-hmm. And it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. And it's funny, that leads kind of into another question once we step out of the 3 C's for a minute, is that we've talked about 3 of our pillars. And I think you guys have that list. I'd love to hear from either one of you, and can take a turn on this one, but hear from both of you. What other pillar? There's 11 others there. Which one?
Stack of records. Hold on.
No worries. Take your time. And I can go through them if it's easier for you. I've got a list as well and know them pretty well. But as you look at that list outside of the 3 C's, I'd love for you to, you want me to go through them? Would that be helpful?
They're on the couch.
Or you got them. Okay, well, let me read them off. We talked about commitment, communication, and conflict resolution already.
Right.
So the rest of our pillars are trust and honesty, patience.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Intimacy, lasting love, selflessness, unity, servant leadership, faith and moral code, appreciation, and security. So which of those others jumps off the page and is important to each of you? Oh yeah, fun and humor is the last one. Yeah.
There you got it.
We'll definitely go. We'll go for fun and humor,
Right.
Although I can say, I mean, so many of these, and there, it's an excellent list because these are certainly the components that one looks for and hopes for in a relationship. And as we did the assessment, I think both agreed, yeah, we're doing well in all these, but fun and humor is probably the top one for us.
Yeah. It's door number 3, right? I think, my favorite people are always, the funniest people I know. And, frankly, Audrey's hilarious, but it's it's true. I equate funny with smart, and I think that every day would be really, really sad if we weren't as ridiculous as we are.
Yeah, I mean, I dance around the house all the time, and I think on the dance floor I'm an okay dancer, but around the house I'm a silly dancer, and it's just excellent. I love that it amuses Cheryl, and sometimes she dances along. But I think we just we lift each other up with that sense of fun, and the thing that you hear sometimes is how many positive versus negative experiences can start to pull a relationship down, and I believe that for us that cultivation of fun and appreciation of humor really helps to maximize the number of positives for us.
Well, and also it's all about play, really, right?
Yeah.
So we play well together, and we look for other people to hang out with who we play well with. And boy, if life is all work, really, and for us, it could be anything from a word to a butt dance to just, it's anything. I think I personally look to play with everything as much as possible. Words, everything.
And with our friends, we like to have experiences. So whether it's going on hikes or going for a drive, or
especially if they're funny.
So. I think playing together is huge. And you hit the nail on the head when you said together, because I believe couples can get caught up in doing things separately. Oh, I'm going to go play golf, or, I'm going to go do this with the girls. And all of a sudden you're playing, but you're over here and your spouse is over there, and you're forgetting that it's playing together. The fun and humor together is what's so important. It really does make a huge difference in your marriage when you can do that. So kudos to both of you.
I think if you don't like to play together, you probably aren't compatible,
right?
Well, and for us, I mean, as I said, we share this love of music, and a joke in Cheryl's circle, because she's we have this large record collection, and many of her friends and colleagues who also bring records into the house talk about the 1 in, 1 out rule that their spouse has imposed, and we're not like that. We support one another, and both love having the records. So playing records, playing music, going to concerts, that's a huge important dimension of our relationship. And I've tried to articulate what it's like to have, we call it a band crush. There are certain bands that we both just really love, and how that enhances something about the love that we have for each other, that we have this music.
Yeah. So sharing, playing.
some people we can finish each other's sentences, but we have a kind of endless arsenal of song references.
Right.
We'll say something and then someone will burst into a song that relates to it.
Well, it's weird because I'm the person that works in music. She's the best DJ.
There you go.
Oh,
I love that kind of bantering too.
So now were you guys in a band together or in separate bands? I want to hear about this band crush romance.
Same.
I want that backstory. Our listeners have inquiring minds.
This is Audrey's story.
Well, we did, but we met because so I was when I was just starting out as a college professor, I was in Oberlin, and Oberlin is kind of, there's a music conservatory, a lot of music. So I started at that time playing drums, and when I landed in California, I got together some women for an all-female blues band, and we were playing out around my college. And one night we were scheduled to play a bookstore, Borders Books, and we hadn't played this bookstore before, so I went over to listen to another band that was playing. It was Cheryl's band. And I talked to her at the break and asked her some questions. And actually your piece of it is that she saw I'll tell your piece of it, I guess, but you saw in the Borders newsletter that there was a band playing the next week, my band.
And it listed, drummer, professor, lit professor, Audrey Bilger. And I was like, that's an interesting combination.
So the next week I was playing with my band and I looked over at the coffee counter and I thought, I think it's that guitarist. And then I got her phone number and she gave me her records and the rest is
Man,
that's awesome.
I love it. What a great story. So it is true. It was a band. It was a musician connection.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, Audrey, I have a fun question for you. If you could go back in time to your unmarried self and put your hands on your shoulders and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Yeah, that piece of advice would be to believe that there is someone who is trustworthy, who is endlessly entertaining, and who will always surprise me. To believe that person is there, because I think when you're not in a coupled state, you begin to despair, and then for me, when I met Cheryl, I felt like, oh my God, this is pretty special.
How about you, Cheryl? If you had to do the same thing, give yourself one piece of advice, your unmarried self, what would you say?
Work hard, play hard, and find a person that does both of those things with you. Seamlessly. And work towards that. Work towards, having that person that is agrees with you that you're for each other.
That's great. Yeah. Both good pieces of advice. I love it. So, if our listeners want to connect with you or follow you or learn more about what you're doing, where's the best place for them to look and find you?
So my company is Omnivore Recordings. That's a good place to start. It's just omnivorerecordings.com. And I have a personal website where I still do some consulting work and stuff. So it's just CherylPawelski.com. Pretty easy. You're easy to find, but harder to find on the social medias.
Yeah, I'm the president of Reed College in Portland, Oregon, and so I'm on the website there. I'm not as active on social media right now because it's sort of a complicated environment. But I am
it's like you have time.
It is so true. But I think my social media handles are at Audrey Bilger at various places.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Great. And they can find your book and read that and listen to some great music. And wow, we are
ridiculously Googleable. How's that?
Yeah, it can be a good thing, right? It can be easy to find. Well, good. Man, it's been so much fun being with you both today and getting a slice of two different lives, but commonly bound in music and fun.
I agree. Yeah. What a
The
Go
sun
ahead.
the sun has been the third party in our interview. So I think
I don't know how to turn it down.
It's the aura. That's all right.
Yes.
That's all right.
It's a beautiful aura, just like you have a beautiful relationship. There it is.
Yeah. That's good.
No, you have a beautiful relationship, and you've been really open and vulnerable with us today. And we're so grateful for that. So thank you for sharing your time with us and sharing a little bit about yourselves.
We look forward to sharing the interview with our audience, our listeners, and we're grateful. So thanks for the time and getting to know you a little bit better. And we look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you so very much. This was fun.
It's been big fun.
Good.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com, and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.